Our students are the future. How we advance innovation and impact and approach equity in their classrooms will determine how we thrive as a world community. The status quo just won't cut it. That's why we're here to break the grade. Hello, breakers and difference makers. I'm Josh Chernikoff, host of How I Broke That. I'm a two-time entrepreneur in the education space, and I've successfully exited both of those companies. I've experienced my fair share of breaks in my life, and I'm here to bring my signature approach to my new show, Breaking the Grade. I'm embarking on this special journey alongside my good friend and mentor, John Gamba, Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn GSE. In our podcast, you'll hear from emerging business owners in the education space who are working to transform education as we know it. Tune in as we hear about industry trends, unique principles and practices, and the attempts that have and haven't worked for our grade-breaking guests. So fellow entrepreneurs and educators, what do you think? Are you ready to take a hammer to the education space and break the grade? Welcome to Breaking the Grade. I have a guest today that I have a lot of ties with that I didn't even know I had a lot of ties with, from Argentina to Pennsylvania and everywhere in between. Denise Abulafia, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Josh. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. It's only fitting that at this moment you're in Argentina, I'm in Mexico. We met in California. The next time we see each other might be in Philadelphia. So, we're kind of all over the place, but at the same time, we're in the same industry. And you've been in this industry of education for a few years now. So tell us a little bit, give us a minute, and then we're going to go down this long road with you, but give us a minute about who you are.
Okay, I would love to do that, but because I shifted so many times in who I am that I think I would start from, the last part of my journey to the first one. And who I am today, I love to recognize myself as a social entrepreneur, but also a person that combines and articulate like a special translator, which in between areas, like what happened in science, what happened in education, what happened in technology. I've been in so many areas around all these 25, 30 years that it's easy for me to integrate all this knowledge and bring new ideas, understanding all these ecosystems. So social entrepreneur is a way of life, is how I recognize myself, and it's independent of the area where we are. Today is learning, but learning is so broad that we can speak for hours. So we will try to go a little bit narrow in our conversation.
Totally. You and I can totally speak for hours. So we'll start though, first of all, with, kind of how you made this transition from neuroscience to EdTech. And I think it would be helpful, obviously, for people to understand how you made the transition, but also if you can relate that to a lot of our audience. A lot of our audience didn't necessarily start in education or in EdTech per se, owning their businesses. They came into the space. So talk about your transition and what that was like for you.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, my bachelor degree was in biochemistry. So I studied biochemistry in Buenos Aires, and I was totally into science. I was going to be in the lab forever. And I moved to US and I did a PhD in cell biology and anatomy at But I decided that I wanted to create all my PhD project in the neuroscience field. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that I was so much interested in understanding how the brain works when we learn, because I was always a learner. Like, I love to learn new things all the time, but I wanted to understand how things happen. So once I finished my PhD, I was so questioning myself, so many things about, how am I going to continue learning all the time for me? I didn't want to be in the lab all the time with the, animals and cells. I wanted to do much more impact. So I spent a lot of time teaching other students and, being like a very good communicator in science, trying to teach as much as possible what the science is about, that I realized that if I move and I shift to other areas, I might be more impactful than staying in the lab as a scientist. So once I finished my PhD, I decided that I want to move to teaching first so I can be in the classroom and experience what were the main problems that the students were struggling with. And so I moved to Mexico and I spent 2 years, teaching high school and also in the first year of med school because I was a biochemist, so it was pretty easy to start teaching at med school with biotechnology, things like that. And I worked a lot of years during my bachelor degree, like in the lab and also in the pharma industry. So I knew very well what happened in the pharma industry and the main pain points with the learning that the doctors or medical doctors were having in the pharma industry. So I started to teach. I actually did a master's degree in teaching, in the science of teaching.
Wow.
After that. And this is the point in my life where I found my first step as an entrepreneur. I found a big, very focused problem. And that is that the doctors that were in the pharma industry, they don't have time to train themselves as they continue education. And we were speaking about the year 2007, 2008, online learning were not as cool and popular as they are today. So if they need to be trained in anything related to medicine, they need to go back to the university or other programs that were also face-to-face. So, and I was teaching at a university that didn't have an online platform at that point. So I created the first online program for continuing education between my university, which was Universidad Anáhuac in Mexico, and one of the big pharma industries. And this program was so successful that I started to create my first startup, which was a company that provides learning programs, online learning programs for medical doctors in the pharma industry from the university. So I gathered all my colleagues, my teachers' colleagues, and we were all teaching online to these pharma industries. So this is where I started to learn, this is a startup, we have a platform, we have a product, we need to start selling our product. So this was, the beginning of how I become an entrepreneur and leave, the science field.
It's amazing how so many times I speak to entrepreneurs, and I'm in this boat as well, where you just start something because you're passionate about it or because you need to, and it becomes a business. And that happened in your case. And you reminded me of one of our other connections, which is Mexico City as well. And we'll have to kind of detail all of these wonderful connections we have from Argentina to Mexico City to Philadelphia and again, everywhere in between. But let's get back to your story and let's talk about this idea of the world and having grown up in America, I think that quite often we only think inside of America. And now that I've spent a lot of time in Mexico, I've been able to see the education system here, the way the businesses work, the way the government works. I'm no expert, but I've been able to learn. So what did living in different places do for you in terms of your understanding of education and how to build your business to get it to scale, to get it acquired?
And this was, I think this living in different countries and knowing different, realities, and that gave me the opportunity to visit so many school systems, so many schools, talking to so many students and teachers and parents, that it made my mindset so much integrated into, I study in US, and I know that schools in US are very different states from state, and also, in different parts of the country, wherever you are. But when you start visiting other countries, if you visit a school in other country, you will see so many different things, like the way that the school system is organized, the time of the amount of time students spend in the classrooms, the structure, the architecture, the way that we train teachers around the world is so different. And even if you think about how we learn math, and if you visit 3 countries, you will probably have 20 different ways to learn math. Because there is no one single country that can actually, have a common sense of how they teach math. So if you start understanding that there is a science of learning, but there is also a science of teaching. And when these sciences are not articulate or not integrated in one common pathway, this is so complicated for entrepreneurs that are trying to make a difference in how we help students to learn better, when there is no consensus, within the scientists that are actually building products. So it is very important to make this overview of the landscape and understand different realities, so you can be much more ambitious in the way that you create your products. And this helped me also to raise money, because I knew where investors were. Which are the investors that were looking only in the US, but also were looking in Mexico, were looking at the impact in Argentina or in Colombia, or also helped me to understand that I cannot be focused in only one single market, that it was very important to at least have 2 or 3 different markets. And that was not achieved with my first company. It was achieved later on with Educatina.
Well, and let's not gloss over the fact that we all have had businesses that were not as successful, and it sounds like you had that as well. Awesome. That's great. We learn from falling down, but let's talk about for a little while the acquisition of your company and what that was like for you. And let me preface this. I've had 2 businesses acquired, and most people who know me know I've also been sued once for quite a long time. It happens when you run businesses. I feel like getting my businesses acquired almost felt like I was getting sued. There's so much information to be given. There's so much conversations to be had. And it's a very long process. It's not as glorious at all as it sounds. So talk to me and us about your experience with getting your company acquired, and what then did it do for you?
Well, and I have to say that every acquisition, it's completely different, because there must be different reasons for an acquisition. It is not always about the money. Right. And in my case, it was not about the money, and the reason for that is I have a super huge board of investors, very amazing angels that invested in my company. And we were talking about now not the pharma company, but another company that I built in 2017, which is Educatina, who reaches more than 6 million students, offering support after school programs with an online platform and tutoring online 24/7. So what happened with this company is that after 5 years of building this company, we have a super huge reach of the students. We have a very good product, but we weren't able to scale up at the level that we wanted to get. And we have the company based in Argentina. Most of the team was based in Argentina. And there was a real thing that investments in Argentina was not moving us forward. So we raised a seed investment. We wanted to go to a Series A. It was complicated. And we have also a very big deal with a US company that helped us not to raise money with the time. So we were, in a very good financial position for a long time. So that was easy for us to have conversations with other investors or people that want to acquire the company. So for one side, we wanted to recover and we wanted to get back all the investment that we have done in the past. But this was a very social focused impact in company. And we wanted to make sure that the company was going to be still alive and offering the services and products that we created, and that will be, getting impact for a long time.
Right.
So there was not only about searching for money, but it was also searching for the partner that will guarantee they will continue with the essence of the company. And that take us a long, 8 months of conversations until we found the best offer. And now Educatina is still in the market. It's, behind another brand, but it's still reaching millions of students around the world. And we were happy with that, even though it was not a millionaire deal.
Right. I want to transition. The second part generally of our conversations is more kind of tactical. And so I want to transition to this question I have for you, because you talk a lot about we. And sometimes when I talk to founders and they say we, I say, who's the we? And they really mean the mouse in their pocket. That's the we. And sometimes you need to kind of have that feeling of we, but when you say we, you're talking about a lot of people. So I would like you to talk to our audience about how they can attract other people who are interested in what their passion is. And maybe it's an advisory board, an unpaid position, but how do you leverage those relationships so that they are beneficial for both sides?
I love that question, Josh, because if I have to tell you one thing that I learned being an entrepreneur, and if I have the best mentors ever, and the reason is that I went to find these mentors very early in my startup journey. I asked for help very early on, even when I was building my business plan and I didn't have any product. I want to pick up advisory boards. I built an advisory board very early in my career. Of course, the only thing that I had to offer them, it was, stock options or equity, but they accepted because they believe in me. They believe in my partners, my business partners, the other co-founders, which is, I think it's very, very important how you build a company. Co-founders are essential. You need to trust in your co-founders. You need to find co-founders that complement you, that you need to know yourself very well and understand who will, be your partner shouldn't be the same as you. I mean, you and me, for example, we would be a perfect couple in an entrepreneurial life because you know how to sell, I know how to build, and I know the science behind the product. So this is the kind of partnership that you have to find when you build products, So, so going back to your question is, I think it's very important for all entrepreneurs to start building a network of advisors and mentors very early in the career. So don't be afraid of that because we shouldn't know everything at the beginning. This is a learning process for all entrepreneurs. when I started to build my company, I have zero experience in financials. I have to go back and see what is a P&L because I never have an economic class in my life. So I knew a lot about science, but building a business plan and a P&L, it was completely new. So, but I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. So, and there's many ways that everybody can learn now. So that will be my guess. That's why I talk about we, because I'm never alone.
Yeah, you weren't alone for sure, and neither was I. And honestly, one of the things I think I would do differently was the way that I interacted with my business partners in my second business. And this is crazy that we say this today. We're recording this show on May the 29th, 2025. Last night I had a dream about one of my business partners. And I certainly don't remember having a dream about him. And we were just having a conversation. And it was a good one, which was nice. And we didn't always have nice conversations. It's tough to build a business. And so you're right, having the right mentors around you and then picking the right co-founders that complement you is really important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And then I also wanted to ask this question, going back to kind of this idea of, your experiences globally. Since you've been in places like Argentina and Mexico and the United States and all of these other places, the list goes on and on, I'm sure. What are the ties that you see when it comes to customer acquisition in the education space? Because that's really what our show is about. And we believe in a very clear offer. We believe in messaging that converts, credibility that helps people to understand who you are. Are those some of the things that you see as well globally as you travel around and you see businesses grow in this space?
100% yes, I would say. Like building your brand as a company or even as an entrepreneur, I think it's a key aspect of selling your products in any market. Like education is all about trust. So you need to get, the confidence that it's critical from educators, from decision makers, from parents, from students. So if it's about engagement and motivation, I would say I'm a specialist in intrinsic motivation. So we didn't talk about that, but I would say getting to the right intrinsic motivation, it's very important. But this is once they already sold the product, right? Once you start implementing. But before that, to get your product in the market, in any market, I would say it's all about trust and building networks. So if you are going to enter a new market, and mostly outside the US, you will find that you need to find local people to get this trust network with the public sector, with the private sector, because even if you go to one specific market as Mexico, you will find that every state within Mexico, they have their own culture fits. Like I'm an advisor in many startups in education. Like I'm part of the advisory board of many startups. And many of the conversations that we have is when we need to translate the educational content that you offer in the platforms, it's not only about getting to neutral Spanish, for example, neutral Spanish. It's about how you adapt the content from every country and even a city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you think about English and you want to go to a Spanish market, you say, well, you just go to Spanish. It's not about going to Spanish. It's about getting into the real world of this school system. And to get over there, you need to get the trust and be aware that we need to be flexible when we go to other markets with our product.
Gotcha. It sounds like to me what you're saying, some of the things are you have to have trust, you have to understand the market, and you have to certainly listen to people. I would say, that absolutely no argument that, going from state to state in Mexico or place to place in Argentina, you are 100% right. And having sold, certainly my second company was a B2B business where we were in 6 states. And it was an after school enrichment business, which you know very well. And, you could have one school that had a wonderful after school enrichment culture, and then go a half a mile, and the next school would have no after school enrichment culture. And so you have to be that chameleon that you're discussing, I think certainly from country to country, state to state, and then I would say sometimes street to street, and so all of that goes back to, continuing to try and earn trust and understand the challenges of the particular school that you want to work with. What do you think?
And how you earn trust? Being in the field. Like if you, get away from the office and go into the schools, like stay over there, try to visit as many schools as you can, or universities, or wherever is your target audience, but try to be there as much as possible, because this is where you will find what to talk about. If you talk about the same language that they talk, this is how you build trust. So if you're in the office, you will probably not get it. Like you will feel that you are, this manager and business people, but it's nothing to do with that. And education is like that. It's not in every field, but education is all about trust. So we need to talk the same language.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. And if you weren't so far away, I'd hug you right now, because this is something that I talk so much about. And maybe this is an after school thing, that a tie that you and I have. And maybe this is because you and I spent so much time in after school where it is so important. I would drive to all of these schools. I had a Jeep Wrangler, super cool Jeep Wrangler. Everybody hated riding in it, which was awesome. And so I'd ride alone and listen to my own music, but I'd ride up and down 95, I-95 from DC to New York, and I'd go visit 82 schools each quarter, and I would walk in and I'd shake hands. And then, you can definitely appreciate this. When I finally brought in my COO, Michael Fay, he would say, I need you to go to all these schools, but don't change a thing. Don't make any suggestion. Don't, we've got it working. Just go say hi. And I'm like, okay. He was right. So I cannot agree with you more. The importance of going in, listening, saying hi, seeing how things work. And maybe again, it might be because we spent so much time in after school and there's so much to see. And it feels good too. It really feels good to see everything in action and certainly get away from your desk. So I could not agree with you more.
And also, I would say, George, that one of the things that I learned as well is that sometimes you sell when you are not selling. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes you sell better when you are just visiting and learning from others. For example, like this is something that I probably too much, but every time that I go on vacation in a different place in the world, I always try to visit a school.
Really? Cool.
Because I like where, how they learn even if I go to Aruba, I try to visit a school. So, but so it happened to me that I was, on vacation in Aruba. I went to visit a school. I talked for 2 hours with the director, the dean of the school. And after that, they asked me to buy my solution from Argentina. And I was only visiting the school. I was not imagining it at all, to bring my products or services so far away, in other markets that I didn't know. But we found out that we have so many things in common within the curriculum and the way that we think the science of learning, that we were talking about how we learn and how we can engage students in the, lifelong learning process. And it worked.
That's amazing. You and I have got to know each other really well. I don't know if you're a golfer, but I am a bad one.
Tennis player.
Okay. I can make the metaphor, I think, work for tennis. It certainly works for golf. And people who've listened to this show know that when you play golf, the harder you swing, the ball goes less. But when you let the club do its thing, when you let the club head come through and you swing nice and easy, the ball goes further. And I bet that's very similar in having a nice loose swing in tennis. And I would relate that to your story in Aruba, or probably other people who are listening may say, oh yeah, that time that I closed that deal, I really wasn't trying to sell. I was just being myself. I was just listening. I was just, as our mutual friend John Gamba says, I was being interested and not interesting. And that's when these deals flow our way. So I'm with you from the golf side, and you got it from the tennis side, I would imagine.
Exactly. It is exactly. But that's the training process. From us as an entrepreneurs, we don't need to, be born with these skills. You learn it in the process of, building your company. And that's the reason as you are producing this podcast, amazing podcast today that help, millions of entrepreneurs that I wish I had this podcast before because it took me so much time to understand how to learn my solutions. So I think it's all about, creating networks, asking for help. Yeah, and because we met in California and I went directly into you and said, Josh, what are you looking for in this event? Yeah. What's your goal? Oh. And I talked to you about my goals, right? And we helped each other.
We did. Well, we probably will never know how many ties we have, but our Jewish geography from Argentina. My wife and her family are from Argentina. You lived in Interlomas, in a part of Mexico City where my mother-in-law lives. I'm looking down at a list right now because I had to write all this down. Philadelphia. I'm involved with the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education. You are as well. Then there's the after school space and tutoring. So we have all of these ties that bind us, and we will continue to support each other. Talk to our audience about how they can find you, because I know you always want to help people.
Oh, well, I have so many hats. So one thing is I support the Ibero-American Association of EdTech. That means that I'm always available from that hat to help any entrepreneurs that want to explore the Latin American market or the Ibero-American market. If anybody is trying to, to look and learn from that market, they can reach me on LinkedIn. You can have my information as well. I have my webpage. They can contact me in many ways. But also, I teach at Penn at the Education Entrepreneurship Program, Master Program. So hope also to have a lot of, students coming up to the program as well. I think it's a huge opportunity to meet with other educators that are, learning how to become serious entrepreneurs. And what else? Well, I'm available, in my social network and happy to also participate in other advisory boards when I found that there is a huge potential from the team and from the problem they are trying to solve. And let's say not the solution, the problem they're trying to solve.
I think that's a great way to end. The problem that people are trying to solve and not the solution. So I appreciate you being on the show. It's amazing how many connections we have, and we'll see how many more connections we make. I know we are cooking some things up here in the background. So I appreciate you being on the show, and we'll let our team take it from here in terms of our audience, because I think they'll want to be in touch with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me to this amazing space, and let's have a lot of fun. Continue working in education.
We will.